For years, Sam Heughan has built a reputation for being one of the most composed and controlled figures in the Outlander world. He rarely makes impulsive statements, rarely reveals too much too quickly, and almost never surprises fans without some level of build-up. That is exactly why what happened during this particular moment caught everyone completely off guard. It didn't begin with a dramatic announcement or a carefully staged reveal. Instead, it started in a setting that felt familiar, a casual interview, a relaxed conversation where Sam appeared as he always does, confident, thoughtful, and slightly playful. He spoke about his recent projects, his experiences on set, and the journey that Outlander has taken over the years. Nothing about the moment suggested that something unexpected was coming. Then, almost without warning, he said it. The statement itself wasn't shouted or emphasized. In fact, it was delivered in the same calm tone he had used throughout the interview, as if it were just another detail in a longer conversation. But within seconds, viewers realized that what Sam had just said carried far more weight than anything else in the discussion. At first, many people weren't even sure they had heard it correctly. The clip began circulating almost immediately, with fans replaying the exact moment over and over again. Some slowed it down, others added captions, trying to confirm the wording and understand the context. It didn't take long before the realization set in: this wasn't a misunderstanding. Sam Heughan had just made a surprising announcement. The reaction online was instant and overwhelming. Within minutes, fan communities across platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube were filled with posts asking the same question: did he really just say that? The uncertainty only made the moment more powerful, because it created a sense that something significant had just happened, even if no one fully understood it yet. What made the situation even more intriguing was how casually Sam had delivered the information. There was no dramatic pause, no attempt to highlight the importance of what he was saying. He didn't lean into the moment or give fans time to process it. Instead, he continued speaking as if nothing unusual had occurred, moving smoothly into the next topic without acknowledging the impact of his own words. That contrast, between the calm delivery and the explosive reaction, is what fueled the growing storm online. Fans began analyzing not just the statement itself, but everything surrounding it. They looked at his tone, his body language, even the expressions on his face immediately after he spoke. Some believed he seemed completely at ease, suggesting the announcement was something he had already accepted internally. Others thought they detected a subtle shift, a brief moment where he realized the weight of what he had just revealed. As more people joined the conversation, different interpretations began to emerge. Some fans were excited, seeing the announcement as a positive step forward, something that represented growth, change, or a new chapter in Sam's life or career. For them, the surprise was welcome, even refreshing. But not everyone reacted that way. A significant number of fans approached the situation with caution. They questioned whether the statement had been taken out of context, whether it might have been misunderstood, or whether there was more information that had not yet been revealed. In a fandom that has experienced years of speculation and rumors, skepticism came naturally. The deeper people looked, the more complex the moment seemed. Old interviews began resurfacing, with fans comparing past statements to this new announcement. Some pointed out that Sam had hinted at changes in his life before, though never this directly. Others argued that this was the first time he had said something so clearly without leaving room for interpretation. That alone made it feel different. What also stood out was how quickly the moment spread beyond the core fanbase. Entertainment pages began picking up the clip, sharing it with wider audiences who may not have followed Sam closely before. As a result, the conversation expanded, bringing in new perspectives and even more speculation. At that point, the announcement was no longer just a moment within an interview. It had become an event. And yet, despite the growing attention, one thing remained unchanged: Sam himself said nothing further about it. There were no follow-up posts, no clarifications, no attempts to explain or reframe what he had said. The silence that followed only added to the tension, leaving fans with more questions than answers. Because in the absence of explanation, people begin to fill in the gaps. And as the discussions continued to evolve, one realization became impossible to ignore. Whatever Sam Heughan had just revealed, it wasn't just a passing comment. It was something that had the power to shift how fans saw him, and possibly change what they expected from him moving forward. One group of fans embraced the news almost immediately. To them, the announcement felt like a natural progression, a sign that Sam was ready to step into a new phase of his life or career. They celebrated the idea that he was sharing something more personal or meaningful, interpreting the moment as a rare glimpse behind the carefully controlled image he had maintained for years. But others weren't so quick to accept it at face value. For this group, the lack of detail was impossible to ignore. They began asking questions that spread rapidly across fan communities. Why would Sam choose to reveal something so important in such a casual way? Why now, and why without any build-up or clarification? And perhaps most importantly, what exactly was he referring to? That uncertainty created space for speculation. Fans started connecting the announcement to subtle hints from the past, interviews where Sam spoke about change, moments where he seemed reflective about his future, or comments that, at the time, felt vague but now appeared more significant. Individually, those moments had meant very little. But now, they were being re-examined as possible clues leading up to this reveal. At the same time, others urged caution. They pointed out that in the world of interviews, context matters. A single sentence, taken out of a longer conversation, can easily be misunderstood or exaggerated. Without the full context or a direct follow-up from Sam, jumping to conclusions could lead to unnecessary confusion. Still, the debate continued to grow. What made the situation even more compelling was Sam's complete silence after the announcement. In an era where celebrities often clarify or expand on their statements within hours, his decision not to address the reaction stood out. There were no social media posts, no additional interviews, and no attempt to guide how the information was being interpreted. For some fans, that silence felt intentional. They believed Sam was allowing the moment to speak for itself, choosing not to over-explain or dilute the impact of what he had said. In their view, this was consistent with his personality, someone who prefers actions over words and avoids unnecessary attention. For others, the silence only deepened the mystery. Without confirmation or clarification, every interpretation remained possible. The announcement could represent something major, something minor, or something entirely different from what fans initially assumed. And until Sam chose to speak again, there was no way to know for certain. That uncertainty is what kept the conversation alive. Because in the end, the true power of the moment wasn't just in what Sam Heughan said. It was in what he didn't say. The gaps, the unanswered questions, and the quiet aftermath all contributed to a sense that something important had shifted, even if no one could fully define what that shift was. And perhaps that is exactly why fans couldn't stop talking about it. Because sometimes, the most compelling stories are not the ones that are fully explained, but the ones that leave just enough mystery to keep everyone wondering what really happened. What made the situation even more compelling was Sam's complete silence after the announcement. In an era where celebrities often clarify or expand on their statements within hours, his decision not to address the reaction stood out. There were no social media posts, no additional interviews, and no attempt to guide how the information was being interpreted. They believed Sam was allowing the moment to speak for itself, choosing not to over-explain or dilute the impact of what he had said. In their view, this was consistent with his personality, someone who prefers actions over words and avoids unnecessary attention. They pointed out that in the world of interviews, context matters. A single sentence, taken out of a longer conversation, can easily be misunderstood or exaggerated. Without the full context or a direct follow-up from Sam, jumping to conclusions could lead to unnecessary confusion.